I thought it would be boring to write. I did. I thought, like, you know what, but I was so wrong. It's fun. The neat thing about Amish is it's like writing a historical because you have these social constraints. And so you take these characters and you fling them into the middle of these social constraints where you can't do this and you can't do that. And if you do this, it means this. And all these rules that they have to follow. So it's a really interesting story to write because you have to keep within these social constraints, and then people are falling in love with each other as they do, and they're yearning for each other and they're longing for each other, but some things are just considered, out of pocket. You can't do that. And so it makes for a really interesting romance because they're so restricted, in the same way that in a historical romance, if, like, their hands touch, it has so much more meaning. It's the same thing with Amish romances. So you can do a really good slow burn where they long for each other, and these constraints are holding them apart as they like move towards, through the book. So you get to do a really satisfying slow burn with Amish romance, and it's fun. Because I've written a lot of Amish, you need to find something that's going to be a little bit different. You need something that's going to unite a mini series. So this is just sort of the nuts and bolts of the writing, right? So where you have to say, okay, I need to have 3 books that are going to hang together. It needs to be Amish. For the heartwarming, they are actually what's called Amish adjacent. So my hero and heroine are not Amish, but they are in an Amish community. So all of your supporting characters are all Amish. The Amish sensibilities have a huge influence and impact on my hero and heroine, but the hero and heroine themselves are not Amish. So that makes them a little bit different. I was discussing with my agent that I wanted something that sort of hadn't been done yet, and that I thought would really just grab people's attention. And I love antique shops. So I thought, what if we have an antique shop that caters to like Amish stuff, right? And so you have a lot of tourists who will come through and who will be able to pick up, like, an Amish piece, an Amish, like an antique Amish item, and then the 3 sisters who are running this shop, and how they relate to each other, and their the 3 consecutive love stories that go along with that. So yeah, so really, I wish it were more romantic. The way I put these together, I really wish it was. I wish I could say that, I had this, glorious idea and it came out of, the ether somewhere. But no, it really is a nuts and bolts kind of thing. But once I work really well, once I have those nuts and bolts, and I know this is what I have to work with, and this is sort of what I need to create a story with, that's when my imagination really fires and I can get those characters coming to life for me. So it works for me. The secondary character who becomes the heroine of the next book has a very major loss. And that loss catapults her forward into what happens for the next book. So the first, okay, I'm just going to have to give stuff away, I think, or else I just sound too, yeah, okay, I've got to give stuff away. All right. So in the first book, this is where she gets back together with her ex-husband. So she and her ex-husband have always loved each other, but they could not make the relationship work. And I think this is something that in relationships, you can love somebody so much and they still just drive you nuts, and opposites attract, right? The people who, drive their car down to fumes, marry the people who fill up at half a tank, right? It's just, this is the way we are. Opposites attract, and we drive each other nuts, even though we're madly in love with each other. So this is a couple who drove each other nuts, but they really were in love with each other. They could not make it work. They split up, they get divorced. Faith and her sisters inherit this Amish antiques shop, and they are running it together, and they have to, and before they reopen, they have to do some rewiring, and surprise, surprise, who's doing the rewiring of the shop but her ex-husband. So these two, they really are meant to be together. They drive each other absolutely bonkers. But her ex-husband, she wanted children, her ex-husband didn't. Now her ex-husband has adopted a little boy. Great. So, now he's doing the dad thing now that she's out of the picture. And so there's a lot of tension and emotion. And through the course of this, with her relationship with her sisters, her sister Hope is, she discovers that she's having a baby, and she's going through a lot. And towards the end of the book, this is where I'm just giving it away. her husband passes away. Okay. And so she is now a new widow. Um, that actually doesn't ruin the book for you because the book is all about the hero and heroine, which is the first sister and her ex husband. But just as a something that happens in the plot. So in the second book, we're now moving on to Hope, and so Hope is now very pregnant with her baby from her marriage, and she stumbles across her her late husband's good friend, who she'd never had time to meet and get to know before. And he is a single dad because he had adopted, well, he's adopted his drug addicted sister's little girl. And so he's raised her since she was a baby. So it's not his biological daughter, but she is his daughter because he adopted her, right? And so then I have these two where Hope is trying to figure out what she wants. There were stresses in her marriage, right? It was a short marriage. She loved her husband dearly, but there were things that they had not worked out yet. And so she doesn't want to repeat mistakes. She doesn't want another really career driven guy. She thinks she needs something different this time around. And so Curtis is a very career driven guy. He comes to town because he has plans to try and build a business that will get money back into the town. So, and she's trying to not fall in love with him. And it's tough because she does have these, she loved her husband dearly and he's gone. And so she's dealing with a lot. So that leads into the next book. And it all starts, the second book starts with a little toddler coming into their shop by herself, is very tired, lays down on a pile of Amish quilts, sticks her thumb in her mouth, and goes to sleep. They're like, uh-oh, whose kid? And so they're looking outside up the street and they see this panicked father. And so that begins the story.